welcome. Thank you for joining us. For people unfamiliar with Indivisible Dallas, who we are, what we do, we'd like to take a minute to just share with you what we're all about. We need your help and your heart in this fight, so please make sure to engage with us after this call. We are part of a progressive grassroots movement fueled by a partnership between thousands of autonomous, indivisible groups across the country and beyond, and are supported by a national indivisible organization with a mission to elect progressive leaders and fight authoritarianism. In the state of Texas alone, there are over 70 local groups fighting for democracy with their community, a real democracy of, by, and for the people.
Thanks, Adriana. I'm Samantha Mitchell. This is Adriana Escontrillas with Indivisible Dallas. We are both the co-leads. Just to tell you a little bit more about Indivisible Dallas, we were founded in 2017, shortly after the National Indivisible movement was organized by concerned Dallasites in response to Trump's first election. We recommitted, restructured, and rebranded in early 2025 to meet the worsening crisis of fascism that has a chokehold on our nation and the state of Texas, honestly. Our group's priority is to build an active Dallas area community that is informed with facts, engaged in civic responsibility, and committed to fighting fascism in the long term. We say long term because we hold no illusions that the threat of fascism will ever really die. One protest, one phone call, one voter registered just won't solve it all. Even getting Trump out of office won't solve everything. I hate to burst your bubble, but democracy must be defended day by day, generation after generation. We know deeply in our bones that this fight will last a lifetime. We're not just here to remove those in power, but we're here to keep them away from power forever. And together, we are indivisible.
Now, today's event is a Zoom webinar instead of a meeting. So everyone will be muted during this call, but you're welcome to submit a question in the Q&A feature that you can find there on the taskbar. You can also upvote a question that has been submitted by another guest, and your votes will help us find out which issues are most pressing for you. We will do our best to feed Jasmine as many questions as possible, and a big thanks to all the folks that submitted their questions in advance by email. To enable automated closed captions, move your cursor down to the menu of the options at the bottom of your screen. There will be a button marked CC on it. You may need to select the More button to find it in your menu. And now let's get on to the best part of the night, our conversation with one of the most dynamic Congresspeople ever to grace the House floor representing the people of Texas, United States Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Yay!
Hey y'all, how y'all doing?
We're doing so well. We are so
Much
thrilled to have you. Thank you
It's
so
it's
much.
good to know that somebody's doing well.
Oh my
'Cause
gosh.
there's a lot going on.
Well, we will for this 1 hour at least.
Yes. We're with the people that we love. We want to thank you so much for joining us, for taking this time. We know that you're running around like a mad woman here, and you probably are getting about 30 minutes of sleep a night. So we're so grateful for your moments and your time and for being with our indivisible community here in Texas.
Yeah.
So we've got, just to let you know, we've got a list of pre-submitted questions for our members of Indivisible Dallas and other Texas Indivisible groups, but we'll also be sharing the most upvoted questions in our Q&A live. We will likely have questions that can't be answered in the time, of course, that it takes during this meeting, but we will be submitting the questions in writing to the campaign for answering later in written form.
Okay.
So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our Q&A. I am going to start with a real easy one. Why are you running for Senate?
Because the world is falling apart. And I do mean that. I really do. So here it is. I've been serving in Congress. This is my second term serving in the House. And truly, as I began to reflect on a lot of the rights that we've lost, whether we're talking about reproductive access, whether we're talking about the fact that this redistricting scheme was allowed to play out, or whether we're talking about the fact that we have a president that now is not only out of control, but he's been given a permission structure because he now has immunity, or whether we're talking about the Supreme Court has basically said it is okay to racially profile, has people that are wondering whether or not their marriage will actually continue to exist under the law, like, and the list goes on. So I started to think about that. And no, I am not running to be on the Supreme Court. That's not how you get there. But I did have to think about how you get there. And you only get on the Supreme Court or any other bench because you are confirmed through the Senate. And so when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, this is a problem. I currently serve on a task force. It is the Supreme Court task force. And so basically, we have three bills that we've been trying to push through. One is to make sure that there are term limits. One is to expand the court. And one is to make sure that there is some sort of ethics reform on the court. But at the end of the day, there's still only one body that has oversight over the Supreme Court and the judiciary. And again, it is the Senate. So, as a trained attorney, a civil rights lawyer, and as I am watching our Constitution be decimated, I could stay in the House. Like, I felt confident that even with the lines, I could find a seat to run in and I could have gone back. But my question to myself was, in a moment like this, do you sit and do what is comfortable? Or do you do what is necessary? And so, beyond me just believing I had a shot, if you've ever seen me do anything, you know I like receipts. So we made sure we got data to support the idea that I even would be formidable, considering the fact that I only represent 1/38 of the state. I will tell you that I have not released my general election polling because I don't want the Republicans to use it to try to get their better candidate over there. But let me tell you, I wouldn't have gotten in unless there were numbers that said I could win. That is for sure. We actually did not even poll for the primary when I was trying to make my decision because there's no consolation prize for winning the primary. The win is making sure that we have a voice that knows how to function in this moment because we've got Republicans and Democrats that are leaving the Congress in record numbers because people are frustrated that they don't actually know how to represent during this time. And so I think that I've shown that on the House side. I want to go on the Senate side where I have more power. And when we are talking about a more aggressive senator, not just changing the numbers so that we can get legislation passed, but we also need a different kind of senator than we sometimes get from a state like Texas. Like we've seen how Fetterman has acted on a lot of things. I plan to be me the entire time.
Thank you so much. That was so perfect. And you answered already a couple of questions that were submitted just then. You knew what to say. So um, I want to get to my first question that was submitted by one of our members. You have introduced more bills as a congressperson, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, than any other freshman congressperson in recent history. Is that correct? I think.
I don't know about that part. When I was in the state house, I introduced more than any other freshman. I
That's maybe what I'm remembering. But you've
I
you've
have
done a
not looked
lot.
at my federal, but it's been aggressive as well. Just
You've
know
been
that.
yeah, you have
It's been very aggressive.
certainly introduced more bills than the average bear. Aside from what you've already discussed just then, what are some other bills that are your favorites to introduce once you're in the Senate, and what strategies will you deploy to get them passed?
Yeah, so one of the bills that I'm really big on is the Democracy Restoration Act. It actually is a portion of um, the Freedom to Vote Act, but this one specifically was about restoring the right to vote to those who have been in criminally justice involved individuals. And I think for me, I'm like, it's even more relevant now because people are saying, wait a minute, you can be a 34 count convicted felon and you can like run the country, but you're telling me that if I live in a certain state, I can't even vote for said 34 count convicted felon, right? So I think that we would be able to get more bipartisan support on it right now, simply because of who's in the White House. But that's a bill that I introduced in a bicameral way last session. And then I believe we've dropped it again this session. I usually try to time things with certain types of events or whatever. So we may end up doing something around MLK or something like that. But not really sure if we've reintroduced it yet this term. So voting rights in general is going to be like one of my big things. So for me, getting through the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and or the Freedom to Vote Act. Freedom to Vote would have prevented Elon Musk from purchasing the election, and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act would have prevented and precluded what we see happening right now with the redistricting. It would have also made sure that we had same-day voter registration. It would have made sure that every state had online voter registration. It would have it would have made election day a holiday. It would have done a lot of the things that we really need done, and definitely reinstituted pre-clearance so that states that have been found to be intentionally racially discriminatory, such as Texas, historically has been found to be, and even in this most recent opinion that we got from a Trump appointed justice that said the lines were racially intentionally discriminatory.
Yep.
Yet the Supreme Court said that's okay. Y'all play with them anyway. It would have prevented that. Like it would have had to go through the Department of Justice first, which, of course, dealing with this Department of Justice is a whole other thing. Another bill that I introduced, and this was before what happened to Renee Good, was it's called the Clear ID Act. And that is all about unmasking of agents because at that time we were starting to get like the video footage of ICE agents that were like breaking people's windows, breaking into their homes, that kind of stuff. And obviously now it's only escalated even more. Um, that bill came out of an amendment that I had in judiciary. So for those of you who don't know, I serve on the judiciary committee as well as oversight, but I serve on the immigration subcommittee on judiciary. So as we were going through reconciliation, and this is where they decided to give all the tax cuts to all the billionaires and take healthcare away from everybody else. As we were trying to figure out like the budget and what we were doing, I did an amendment that basically was saying we won't fund ICE if they've got masks. And I argued that it was dangerous for the officers as well as the general public, and it is. It is very dangerous.
Right.
So I have that, but I also have another bill that goes a lot further with Rokana. And so we're co-leading that bill, and basically that bill will require body cam. That bill will require an independent commission that actually reviews ICE action. So similar to what we've seen with some of our commissions that have been set up when we have some issues with law enforcement and individuals like in their cities. So this will be an independent commission, and it does a lot of other things, just trying to really like yank them in a little bit, right?
Right.
Now, this again was still filed before Renee Good. So the day after Renee Good, I had a markup in judiciary, and they wanted to talk about some other random bills. We were like, we're going to talk about Minnesota. So that's what we did. And as information was coming out, it came out that ICE was refusing to, or the federal government was refusing to cooperate, the FBI and them were refusing to cooperate with local law enforcement and run basically a dual investigation of what happened.
Right.
So as I sat there, I came up with a bill idea. And so we are in the drafting process of that. So I do have a bill that I am working on as a result of that. The reason that I just spent a lot of time on ICE right now in this moment is because I think that, regardless of where people stand on immigration, if we allow this to continue on, more people are going to die. And as we've seen, ICE has arrested a record number of US citizens that is outside of their jurisdiction, number
Right.
one. As we've also seen, we've had a record number of deaths in ICE custody, as well as I would argue that we most likely have a number of like a record number of injuries and deaths on the streets because of ICE as well.
For sure.
And if we allow them to continue to expand their powers, this is something that is going to impact all of us. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's already impacting all of us. So it is something that I'm digging into a lot, especially since I serve on the subcommittee and considering like who we are as Texans and considering our diversity. I just think that it is a big issue specifically in this moment. But voting rights so that we can have access to all our other rights, definitely ICE, and healthcare obviously is a big issue for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
and before we move on to healthcare, I actually wanted to clarify a couple of things, if you don't mind me interrupting you. I apologize.
yep.
Because I'm so glad that you're talking about ICE. We have had so many of our members, obviously are feeling emotional and, want to know what can be done. They want to see light at the end of the tunnel. DHS Secretary Noem and ICE have terrorized communities across our nation, obviously. As you just said, we know that there's detention center plans to be built in Hutchins Texas, or at least for some large building to be co-opted for a detention center, aka a concentration camp, in my opinion. So what steps can you take once in Senate to either reform DHS and or we're hearing a lot of scuttlebutt about abolishing ICE? What is your opinion on that, and how do you see that happening?
So the first thing that I'll say is I'm glad that you brought up Christy Nome because I did something else today. I am a lead co-sponsor in impeachment on Christy Nome. We filed that today. So that's a great place to start. Obviously, she is not the only problem, but we are moving forward. We will see what happens. We will see if we can work and get some people to come over to our side to actually vote to impeach her. Obviously, she would still have to be convicted in the Senate. And again, the Senate is the reason that Donald Trump never got convicted and therefore was precluded from being able to become president. I do think that ICE is not functioning in the way that it was legally intended to. And so while I do believe that we need some sort of um, immigration enforcement, I definitely don't think that what we have right now is what we need. And so I'm absolutely on board with getting rid of ICE. Like that's just
We're so glad to hear
we
you
need
say
to
that.
like it's just a matter of like let's start over, let's get back to what it's about, but we knew that when this administration came in, that this was not going to be about going after the bad guys because it's the same guy that was putting kids in cages. And so I'm hoping, and frankly, I had a hearing today in my January 6th committee, and I was asking an FBI officer, like, how long was your training? Right now, we know that these trainings historically for ICE officers have been 5 months. That's not the case. And we consistently hear that the amount of time that they're training is for 47 days. We know that there are officers that have been found to actually have criminal records, which normally would disqualify you. We also, in that same reconciliation that we were fighting against, one of the things that they did is they were taking all this money from everybody else. And then they decided that they would have enough money to give everyone $50,000 signing bonuses to join ICE. And they did that. And I pointed out, I was like, we have staff that doesn't even make $50,000 in this building. So, like, how dare you decide that, like, they get a $50,000 signing bonus for a bunch of people that literally are not qualified to do anything? So I just don't know how we salvage it, especially in its current form and the people that are in it. It does feel like a bunch of January Sixers are in ICE. And these guys, you'll talk to real law enforcement and they feel a way about how they're conducting themselves. And they're like, they're making it difficult for all of us. So I've always said this as a civil rights lawyer, like a bad officer makes good officers look bad, right? Because then people just don't like them as a whole. But I really don't know what we can do because most people that believe in doing the actual work of ICE, they've left. Just like we're losing all the good lawyers at the Department of Justice. Like they don't want to do crazy illegal things.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you so much. That was an excellent answer and really answered, I think, a lot of our questions for sure. I'm gonna switch gears here a little bit. One of the things that's really important to indivisible groups across the nation is refreshing the Democratic Party leadership, especially in the Senate. Specifically, no shade, but we definitely don't want Chuck Schumer to be the majority or minority leader. Is that something that you would support changing up? And if so, who would your dream pick be for that spot?
You were trying to put me in a real big pickle.
I mean, you
Um,
can do a top three. It can be living or dead, whatever.
Not living or dead. Okay, listen. Um, listen, I will say that I've never been an establishment pick.
Mm,
Whether we're talking about me going to the state house, it was the people that got me there. I was outspent 5-1, and I had over 300 volunteers, which is why I not only showed up today for Indivisible, but sat down with Indivisible Corpus Christi on Saturday morning.
mhm.
I believe in the organic people powered things to get me over. Okay. That's even with dollars. Average donation is $20. I say that all to say that I'm still not an establishment pick. Um, right now, things get really interesting in the house for me. I do my best to still be effective while kind of sticking by what I believe. I do think that we will have to see what happens as it relates to who may seek to run for leadership, if anybody. I will say that there is a lot of great talent within kind of the Senate, like a little bit more energetic talent. Now, there's a lot of things that usually when caucuses are voting that they take into consideration. One of the things is who can raise money, because if you're going out, you're trying to flip a seat in Texas, they're like, we need to know who's going to be strong at getting money because that's $100 million. So even though there's a person that may be really great for like our base, they may not be great for fundraising. And I don't know all of the attributes and how they run because I've never been involved in a Senate caucus race. I will tell you that I consistently try to push from within. I try to give my advice as much as I can to people. And I can only speak for the House, and I can tell you that I will consistently do that in the Senate. Because I will also tell you that one of the things that I want to make sure that I do going into this general election is I believe we have to remain as unified as possible. Because I do feel like we lost because of division. And so I am all about keeping some fights in house, and they may be knockout drag down fights, but simply so that we can be as together as possible to make sure that we are facing the opposition. I will tell you that I have publicly said that I did not like some of the things that took place in the Senate, such as the senators that decided to fold when it came down to the shutdown. I was pretty livid. I made my position known about that. And I want to be clear that just like I broke quorum and led the quorum break when I was in the state house, and I refused to go back when other people did go back and give them a quorum. And here it is 5 years later. Um, we're kind of reaping a little bit of the hell of us kind of giving them that quorum back and not making it hurt a little bit more. So that's my long way of that's all I'm giving you.
That was enough.
So,
That was enough, Congresswoman. Thank you. And we understand that you definitely have to, remain diplomatic, especially at this moment. But we hope that you will consider using your power to change leadership for the better for the Senate. So, next, and you touched on this a little bit last time. As an organization, another thing that Indivisible really does feel strongly about is campaign finance reform, particularly regarding what we call fascism funders. So
Mm.
that's like techno fascists of Silicon Valley, billionaire donors, crypto scammy people, and of course, APAC. Do you commit to refusing funds from such sources for this race? And if not, we welcome your reasoning why.
Yeah, so I've never been funded by APEC. I know that there was a lot of stuff online about that.
Yes,
But never, 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 never.
yes. I
Um,
know I want you to tell everybody that, but yeah, that'd be
just
great.
like just so we can level set on that. I will say that I know that there was an article that came out today. I've not read it because I've been a little busy at work. And I'm assuming that it has to do with the fact that when I first ran for Congress, there were two IEs that came in for me that had to do with crypto. Um,
Mm.
that was when I first ran. I ultimately served on the agriculture committee, and crypto actually comes through ag.
Mhm.
I was only on the ag committee because Secretary Fudge told me to go there because they wouldn't put me on judiciary in my first year. Um, and so we did deal with crypto, and everything that we did was about actually putting guardrails and actually making sure that it wasn't the Wild Wild West. So I've engaged in a lot of conversations around it for sure. Now, I'm guessing that article talked about my initial run and the fact that crypto ended up doing IEs. But I haven't had anything like that since, and I don't think we're going to be dealing with that either. But I will say that, I approach as much on policy about balance in general. And so from those that are like, oh, innovation, or we don't want to get behind, or whatever it is. But then at the same time, it's like people are like losing everything because there's literally no guardrails. So I've worked on a lot of legislation to make sure that we've got guardrails, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, including making sure that we actually invest. Because what we were getting out of the Republicans was like, yes, we will give you the guardrails. And then it's like, all right, well, where are the people? Like, where's the money to act? Like, you're putting positions on paper and then not making sure that there's actual regulation and funding around that. So I am committed to not, like, there's going to be no APAC nothing, no crypto nothing coming in, none of that.
We're so grateful. Thank you.
You're
heard it
welcome.
here, folks.
I know. Once and for all. Thank you.
Somebody just asked, what's an IE?
Yes, actually, I just saw that. I was
Let
going
me
to
answer.
ask you to
I'm
follow.
sorry. It literally just popped up. So I was like, let me just go ahead and explain that, because I talk
Yes.
that way sometimes. IE is what we call an independent expenditure.
Mhm.
So basically, what that's the only way to kind of get around campaign finance limits is if somebody runs an independent campaign on behalf or against you. So they still have to have the disclosures, but when someone donates to my campaign, the maximum donation that they can make per leg of my campaign is $3,500. And so that's the money that we have to function within. And it's $3,500 per leg. If I decide, you know what, I want to, and it's one of the reasons that APAC, if you look at Jamal Bowman's race and Cori Bush's race, then they talk about the APAC spending. And what it was is, I think Jamal maybe had 17 or $18 million, but they could literally have one person just drop that amount of money. And then they're not allowed to coordinate with the campaign. So essentially, it's just, say, a super fan with a lot of money, right? They get to do whatever they want to and run their own campaign. It's also what we saw happen with Elon Musk with his $250 million. He couldn't just give that to Donald Trump, but instead he could set up his own campaign and run it to boost him or to hurt Kamala. And so in Citizens United is a big deal, because what it would stop is people being able to run those independent kind of expenditures on behalf or against candidates, and instead limit everyone to kind of function within whatever dollars they raise independently.
Thank you so much. Perfection. Um, Next, I wanted to ask, when once in office, especially considering, let me back up, especially considering your tenure on the House Oversight Committee, we know that you're aware of the erosions of the constitutional checks and balances. We know you know all about it. You could probably write a book, or any kind of accountability for the egregiously illegal acts committed by the Trump administration. Regardless of whether or not a Democratic majority can be reached in the Senate, and I realize that those are two different questions, if a majority is reached and if not. What can be done to bring accountability to these folks? What can be done to investigate and prosecute abuses of power from this Trump regime?
Yeah, so I feel confident that we're going to get the House. It's one of the reasons they're still trying to finagle. But if you look at the trends, we have been um, trending at least 10 points, if not more, towards the Democrats in every election. Even if we're like losing, we're swinging that much. So with that, some of the redistricting is going to backfire because they're drawing the lines too tightly to try to make them Republican, to perform for a Republican. And so therefore, I think we're going to get the House. What that means is that the House will be able to actually move forward with impeachment, right? We filed and we'll be able to bring it up on the floor, but who knows if we'll have the votes, because you can do that kind of individually. But if we have the House, which I think we will, then you can do that. But you also will finally have like the real subpoena power. We don't really have it right now. We kind of got to get the permission from the Republicans, but we will have the ability to subpoena records. We will have the ability to subpoena witnesses. It's kind of like this week. We were supposed to have the Clintons. And
Yeah,
so I show up to all of our depositions, all of our transcribed interviews. Those things are actually behind closed doors, and people never see that. For those that think I'm always looking for a camera, I do a lot of stuff behind the cameras that nobody ever sees.
we know.
So I was there for Jack Smith. I've been there for Bill Barr.
Mm.
I've been there for like all of this stuff, like real like legitimately. Been there for various members of Fonnie Willis's team, that kind of stuff, done these depositions. And honestly, I feel more comfortable there because I'm not limited to my 5 minutes and I get to be a lawyer. But we are able to create a record. So you are able to get those records. And unfortunately, I don't think that we can count on this Department of Justice to actually go forward with anything, even if it's there. But if we go ahead and get the information that we need, hopefully, if we are allowed to still have elections, then with the transition of power, we would have that. But also, if there are some local district attorneys, which is why I'm trying to emphasize to people, don't just wait every 4 years and vote for president. You need to vote all the time and vote up and
Or
down the
every
ballot.
election, every election.
Exactly, because you may have some prosecutors locally that will go out and prosecute some of these people. So that's one of the things that I say is I'm out. Make sure you get the right prosecutors because I am actually concerned, even when it comes to ICE, that Trump is going to go ahead and say that he's going to allow all of them um, to evade prosecution on the federal level, which means that we only will have our state prosecutors potentially available to actually prosecute some of their crimes. So please, 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 if you're out there, make sure you're recording, make sure you're holding on to this evidence, potentially turn it over if you feel like you have a friendly law enforcement agency or prosecutor's office so that they can hold on to this information because they may be the ones that are responsible. Okay, so that's that part. So I think we can get through that part. In the Senate, if we have the majority, we also will have that power, right? To be able to do this investigatory work. Now, as far as us actually being able to get something done, we have to have the numbers. Like it's not a matter of if we're in the minority or not. We have to have the numbers in order to be able to actually get anything done in this moment. But at least if we're in the majority, we get to decide what it is that we investigate. And we also get to make sure that we are exposing things that aren't coming out so that hopefully people are informed enough that they're like, hey, we got to get up, we got to do something, we got to make sure there's not a Republican that's coming into the White House.
Thank you so much. That's
Welcome.
fantastic. I'm going to switch gears again here and
Okay.
touch on a couple of topics that mostly pertain to women and women's rights, especially in Texas specifically. First of all, we know that the Heritage Foundation and other groups have made passing a national abortion ban a priority in the next couple of years. And you know how many people have been endangered by Texas's abortion ban. What can be done at this point to prevent a nationwide abortion ban and other attacks on reproductive health care? Even birth control pills, Plan B, those are all at risk right now.
Yeah, so they are all at risk. I will tell you that again, as I was thinking about running for the Senate, we have a bill in the House that we're able to get out the House, but we got to have the numbers in the Senate. And so there's a couple of things about the Senate that make it unique. It has the filibuster, and so you've got the 60 vote threshold. And so I do think that we need to get more honest and real about whether or not the filibuster still functions in the way that is helpful or not. Um, and or I think we need to have real conversations about whether or not we need filibuster carve outs for additional things. The reason they could get through reconciliation without a 60 vote threshold is because there's a filibuster carve out. So they have the ability to do a carve out. They have done it historically. And I think for fundamental things, especially if we are in charge, then we need to say we need to have, at a very minimum, a carve out. Now, I know that, like, when you look at kind of the range of Democrats in the Senate, getting just a full on filibuster, like, we're done with it. I don't see that happening. But I do think that we should be able to at least make a strong argument for some things. One is voting rights, and another is reproductive access, because it literally is a matter of life or death. And I think that if you didn't know your history about what life was like before Roe v. Wade, which was a Texas case that came out of my district, and
Mhm.
it was argued by a young woman who actually swore into the Texas House, Sarah Weddington, with my predecessor, Eddie Bernice Johnson, as they were in their 20s on the floor. But nevertheless, I say all that to say that Texas women historically saved this country. And so I do think we are living in a full circle moment in that Texas women are going to save us again. So I do think that we've got to make the argument about doing a carve out, and so long as we have the numbers, I think that we can then go ahead and stop that. And then basically, regardless of what the Supreme Court has said, now we would have legislation, and so that overturns and overrules that because the law says that we can do it instead of them interpreting the law.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so grateful for your advocacy and everything that you've at least attempted to do so far for women and for folks who can get pregnant. As multi-generational Texan women ourselves, we are deeply aware how much rides on Texas women to save us all, and hopefully we will. The state of childcare
Yeah,
is abysmal. The ACA is also in constant danger, and I feel like those are kind of related. Childcare costs are higher than many Americans' paychecks, especially in Texas.
yeah.
Most Americans, mostly women, are having to make the impossible choice to leave the workforce because they can't afford to pay for childcare while they're at work. What can be done in the Senate to remedy this, and what can we do as citizens to fight that fight?
I have a bill,
Mm, let's hear it.
but my brain is my
You
brain
have a
is
plan.
dying on me. There is a specific bill that I did around childcare. It's one that I signed on to, but I
You
am,
did. I've heard of it. Yeah.
but yeah, I signed on to a bill, but what I will say, is, first of all, I think that we need to look at our economic issues, in a totality instead of,
Mhm.
just kind of in silos, right? And so one of the reasons that we talk about how expensive things are is because wages are not changing, right? So we have things get more expensive around us, and it's putting on the squeeze because we don't have wages going up at all. So definitely I've signed on to raise the wage, but we also have rising costs when it comes to mortgage. We have rising costs, like you said, like I guess we need to talk about the Affordable Care Act if we're going to talk about childcare because they're kind of
Yes,
related, right?
they are.
So same thing with that. And what most people don't realize is, in reconciliation, the big ugly bill, when they took away Medicaid and Medicare, they took away $1 trillion worth of dollars that go to Medicaid and Medicare. Is that over 40, close to 50% of children are born using that, right? And so it's like, whoa, like that's a lot, right? So almost 50% of our births. So it is making everything more expensive. And then you compound that with the person that we have that's heading up HHS, who is a complete idiot and is making it more challenging for you to be able to access vaccines for your children and giving out misinformation and theoretical things that have nothing to do with science. So I think number one, we need to put in better guardrails around the FDA in general, to help out with some of that. I think number two, we have to make sure that we repeal these permanent tax cuts that were given to the biggest corporations and the billionaires, so that we can have that income coming back in. We need to listen. They act like this is so complicated, and it's really not. Okay, let me make this very simple. It is very simple, and people can say what they want to say about how progressive it is or whatever, but it makes sense. The last time we balanced the budget, it was under a Democrat. Now, I don't know why. Everybody says the Republicans are fiscally conservative and they good, this and that, whatever. No, no. All they do is reprioritize dollars. They decide that we have this big budget and we're going to give it to our friends. These are the same people that are okay with giving Elon Musk $8 million a day from the federal government, and then they have a problem giving $6 a day to people to eat, right? So it's not a matter of we can't get it done. We know what the tax levels were under Bill Clinton. And under Bill Clinton, we got this stuff balanced out. And people also were not then going hungry in the middle of the street. Okay. So, under Vice President Harris, that was what she was proposing, is going back to, the tax schedule that he had when he was president. There is no reason for us to act like we gotta like come up with some like big scheme. Like we know how to do it. Like you can just go cheat off of Bill Clinton's paper, is my point, right? So this is about and hear me out on this, okay? The thing is when everybody does well, when middle class does well, when those that aren't quite middle class are doing better, it benefits the corporations anyway. It
I'm still
does.
getting it.
I mean, who is it that's buying the stuff? Who are the
Yeah,
consumers, right?
we all win.
1.1 million jobs has not helped anybody. That's not helped you. That's not helped you. Maybe in the short term, you've got a few extra dollars in your coffers, but in the long run, what we see is that the economy is tightening and people are like, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm gonna have a job. Let me hold on to my dollars, right? Like that's what it means. So, I mean, I know that we can do this. I know that we have done this, and I know how they try to characterize things, but frankly, this is just about being practical. And honestly, you can argue with facts because that's what they like to do, but the facts are the facts. So for me, overall, I think we need to deal with affordability. So we've got to deal with the tariffs, which I think, not I think, we can rein him in. So that's something that we could do in the Senate with the numbers, is we could rein him in. Same thing with the war powers. The Senate passed the war powers resolution
Right.
that has not come to the House yet for us to vote on. Don't know if we're going to vote on one. Same thing with the Affordable Care Act. These are the only two good things that came out of DC last week. Out of the House, we passed the tax subsidies for 3 years. Out of the House, we'll see what the Senate does. And then out of the Senate, they passed the War Powers resolution. So we can start to rein him in and bring balance back if we literally get the numbers that we need in the Senate, which is why I tell people all the time that I wouldn't be running for Senate if we had a Democratic senator. I would not. This is because literally we have to change the numbers. And by changing the numbers, that changes the trajectory of our country.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Thank you. Adriana, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Um, some advice that we get from other folks is on how to organize our group with a lot of different folks with different issues, different concerns, and how do we stay focused on what motivates us to do this. So I'd like to know, what is your North Star, and how has your North Star from growing up as a Texan to being in state politics to now being in DC? What is that star that has kept you aligned, and how do you see that going for you in the Senate?
Yeah, it's the people. If anyone knows anything about me, they potentially have heard me say I hate politics, and I do. Every single day of my life, I hate politics. But it is a necessary evil, and the evil and the necessary are both existent. That is for sure. And for me, going from the courtroom to politics was all about the injustices that I was seeing up close and personal. My actual experiences. And I was saying there's got to be something better. And initially, I thought they just didn't know better because they didn't have my experiences. And then I got there and I realized that these were features of the system and not flaws. And then so I was like, oh, the trick was on me. So then it was about what is it that I can do to elevate my advocacy and be able to better serve my community. So when my predecessor called me and asked me to run for the US House, I was like, no, it took a lot to get to the Texas House. I'm gonna just sit here, ride this out, and go ahead and do my minimum time to get my pension, and I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. Like that was the thing, right? Like let me find somebody else pass the torch. And it was a former US ambassador to Zimbabwe under Clinton who said, the thing about going to the federal level is that the power actually shifts. So you will be in a position where you can do a lot more for a lot more people. And he said, and even when it doesn't shift, you'll always be able to take something home to your community.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me. And I've been able to do that. I've been able to bring dollars home for the first time in my political career. I was in split government, something I did not see in Texas, right? And so we were able to get some things done. Not everything, right? Because we were in split government, but like we were able to do some things. And even now, in Republican controlled government, like we still are getting some things done. We're still getting money and bringing it home. It's not the same level that I would get at least in split or if we had it all, but like I'm still able to do things. And that is really, really difficult in say on the state level. Um, by the time it came to this race, I felt like number one, we needed to make bold moves because a lot of people are not being bold in this moment. If you will notice, there are a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that are leaving. In addition to that, it couldn't just be that I was out here on a hope, dream, and a prayer. It had to be that I had some receipts and some data because that's just how I roll. And frankly, when we got the polling, which, you know, I only put so much into polling for a lot of different reasons. I have my personal issues, but I only put so much into polling. I used it a little differently than most people. Um, I did the polling because if you also know anything about me, you know that I've traveled this country on behalf of candidates all over, whether it's for the presidential or otherwise. When we got the polling back, it not only said that I could beat, I will tell y'all that it has me ahead of a candidate on the other side. I'm gonna just say that. But I
Yeah.
refuse to release my polling because I want the Republicans to do their thing. So I leave it at that. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Cause like to me, when I read it, it was a floor for me because I only represent 1/38th of the state. I've never run, I had not spent $1 running statewide. I had done nothing. I just represent 1/38th of the state. So I said, well, if this is where we're starting, we can work with something. The
Yeah.
other part of it was this. The other part was that um, I looked at the coalition that showed up for Beto. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's got to be somebody that's going to get the Republicans. And I'm like, actually, we keep saying that and we keep losing with that attitude. I'm just saying, how many times we got to lose with that attitude? These are just the facts, right? This is from a girl that has traveled and seen it. That's not what, and granted, some places that may be the case. Like, I'm not really sure, but that's not the case for Texas. Texas has one of the lowest voter turnouts in the entire country, one of the lowest. So
Yeah.
my theory of the case is that we are not exciting the base because we keep putting up people that we are trying to get that actually appeal to Republicans. And then yes, if you are like a staunch Democrat, you're going to go vote for whoever the nominee is anyway, right? But like what's happening to our base? It's what I've been hearing. It's what I've heard around this country where it's like, well, it seemed like they just want to be a Republican. Like, I'm staying home, right? Like, I mean, what's the difference? I've gotten the two sides of the same coin. I've gotten all these analogies. One kid said different wings of the same bird, right? So so based on the fact that we're not turning out and based on the exit polling of who voted for Beto and how, when I analyzed Beto's numbers and Colin Allred's numbers, Beto's numbers show that he performed really well with Latinos.
Yeah.
So I'm about to get, so they are beating me up every single day trying to act like I hate Latinos. That is strategic, guys. It is very strategic. You know why? Because there was no polling that I saw before I got into the race that had anybody performing better with Latinos than me, except for Beto, like when they would throw Beto in some, right?
Mm.
So we had like our most recent poll, there was an online only poll, which they're not the best. That was the one that came out as soon as I was in the race. And it said that I was not performing as well as like the trends have shown, but I was not surprised by that because it was an online only poll and it just doesn't represent a great cross section. So long story short, it was Black people and Latinos. Our state is a majority minority state. And so the thing is exciting them. So like I did 17 events in 2.5 days because I'm here all week.
Friend.
Yeah, I'm here all week. And then because I got to do the job that I was
I
elected to do.
know, but wow.
But then I went to Houston as soon as I got out of votes on Friday.
I'm from Houston.
When
Sorry.
I went to
Shout out
Houston,
H-Town. Okay.
I did 4 clubs. I went to 4 nightclubs and they put me on the mic in the DJ booths. Now, I don't know that there's another candidate that has ever run statewide that could do that, but they did,
I would
right?
definitely hear your set. I bet it would be awesome.
So I did that. We stayed out till 11 o'clock. So we're talking like when people are like, oh, expand the electorate. I'm like, this is what it looks like. It means like meeting people where they are. And some people go in these spaces and they're kind of cringy, right? Like we've seen this before. Not me, I can go. So we did that, but then I got up at 5:30. We then went to Corpus Christi. We did our little deal with Indivisible and Corpus. Then I went on to McAllen. Then I went on to
Mm.
Brownsville. I went to Weslaco. I then came back to McAllen. I then went to San Antonio. I was in San Antonio by 3:30 a.m. By 7:30 a.m., I was out the door from my first event, my first of a total of 10 events plus going to see firefighters. So I worked the entire day. And I went from being able to go to the club to being able to go to rural America, which when I graduated law school, I became the Democratic Party chair in Texarkana. So I actually know what it is to live in rural America. I
Mm.
still own my house. The first house I ever bought is in Texarkana. So I know what it is to live in rural Texas. And I served on the agriculture committee where I was endorsed by Texas Farm Bureau both this term and last term. And so I've consistently been in communication with Texas farmers and ranchers, and I know what their issues are.
Right.
So I think there's always a perception because I represent Dallas that it's like, oh, we can't send her to certain
City girl.
places. She's
Yeah.
Nope, I have lived that life. Like I know what it is to wake up and smell the paper plant. I know what it is, to have to go to Shreveport or to Dallas because there's not a specialist
Mm.
right there in town. Like I know these things and I've practiced law in these courtrooms as well and know how to communicate with everyone. So
Yeah.
I think I'm more of a chameleon that people probably would guess, but my
Mm.
experiences, so I could go into the club, I could go to rural America, and I can go to church on Sunday as a PK and do my thing. So I think that that's what it is going to take. And it's why, for me, my big message is unity. It is going to take somebody that can unify and talk to people of all persuasions and backgrounds. And so I think this campaign for us is more so about introducing people more so to the substance side of me. Because if you only know a meme or a clip,
Yeah.
then you may not understand that there's actual depth to me.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's like, cool, you know my name, cool, you know I'm a fighter. But now it's more so, let me get to the substance. Let me tell you
Right.
about the things that we've been able to accomplish, even with Senator Cornyn. Because we do have a bill that was signed into law together, where we brought Cornyn in on the bill. So I do work in a bipartisan way. I just don't
Right.
let Republicans like shit on my people and
Yeah.
then like say I like it or whatever. Like we don't do that. And so there's a lot of respect that I get that people actually are probably unaware of from Republicans
Right.
because they know not to cross
Right.
me.
So I want to be super respectful of your time, and we're almost out of it. But
Okay.
have one last question for you, and this is one that we've gotten before many times. We at Indivisible feel like we have two children that are so beloved, and we hate to choose between the two of them. I have heard that so many times in the last few weeks, and honestly, I've also heard what a wonderful problem to have. And I know there are some people that think that you're too well defined. Um, but I want to give you this chance, if you could, and I know both of y'all have been so deeply respectful of each other, and we love that tone. We hope that that remains. But here is your chance if you want to tell people why Jasmine Crockett in this primary.
I think it's got to boil down to experience. I think it just has to. I mean, I have obviously worked on the state level. I've worked with James, but I've also worked on the federal level, and the job is to be on the federal level. And frankly, it's a bit of a wild card
Mm.
when it comes to like it's all theoretical until you get into this game, and this game is ugly and it's nasty, especially in this administration. And as I'm sure many of you have seen,
Right.
there are people that, you've loved. And then once they were in the thick of it, it's like, oh no, like I need you to do more. Like
What
like
happened?
where are you? And so it is hard for people to know really how they will be in this space in this moment. I think in a traditional world, I think honestly, if everything was on the rails, not I think, I wouldn't be running. I'm gonna be honest. If our country was like normal-ish, I wouldn't be running. but it is the fierce urgency of now. Listen, I don't get any change in what I make as far as my pay, none of that. And frankly, I prefer actually going out and helping other candidates. I mean, I've done it. I gave away almost $600,000 to other candidates as a freshman. I raised over $4 million for the Democratic Caucus Committee. So, like, I am always about going and helping other people. And like I told both candidates that were in this race, I had hoped that my internal polling would say something else because I would have rather just been on the road helping somebody else instead of taking all the hits that I knew I was going to get just because it's me. But after talking to Colin Allred, who at that time was the front runner,
Mm,
Colin said, I think you are the one that can get it done. So for me, it's very theoretical. But for a lot of people on the outside, it's all the pundits that know what it takes to win, but they haven't won in 30 years. But okay.
yeah, never
Versus
set foot in Texas, too.
never set foot in Texas
Yeah.
versus the actual numbers. Like we have to win African Americans and Latinos. And frankly, my theory of the case has not only been that we have to win them, right? It has actually been that we need to expand the electorate. Because if the electorate remains the same electorate for the last 30 years, we may get closer, but we won't necessarily get there. So the question is, how do you get those other almost 50% of people that don't participate to participate? So I argue that we get to spend our money a lot more efficiently because I don't have to spend money so that somebody can learn my name. We do that every time. We get somebody who's great on paper. They are great candidates. They are great people. But because it takes so much money and so much time to get your name ID up, I argue that we start at third base. We're not at what's that person's name? We're not at, oh, what does that person stand for? Like getting their brand. We're at third base where it's like, well, tell me more, Jasmine. Give me more about your substance. Because like we know who you are, we know what you stand for, we know what you've done. Now give me more of the substance. Like prove to me that you got some actual chops in here. And then after that, it's like, all right, cool. It's just a matter of GOTV. So I also just think that it's more efficient on how we spend our money if we
Right.
start with somebody that actually is already known, because if you're not known within the base and then at the same time you have to expand and get more people, that's going to take a lot. Right now, the reason that I can just go to the club and be in a space that like I don't know if the people are registered or not, but I'm shooting in the dark and we just gonna try to get them if they are, right? Is because I know that the regular spaces, the traditional spaces of where the Democrats are, I know that they at least know who I am and what I'm about.
Yeah.
I can move on and try to do expansion. And we've had some anecdotal stories so far of people that are like, I normally don't vote, but I'm gonna go vote now because of you. Like there are people like that, and people have been
Yeah.
asking, how do we get them? The final point is that Democrats have been losing those that don't have like a formal education. And I perform really well with that particular segment.
Right.
And that's a space that we had not been doing well in. Typically, I'm trending over 70% with those that don't have college degrees. That's a big deal for Democrats.
That is.
So, when I look at numbers and the coalition, and I look at the coalitions that won on November 4th, the support that I naturally garner is within those coalitions, and my ability to expand the electorate, I think is really the biggest, besides the fact that I actually have the federal experience and I'm already working on all this stuff and that kind of stuff, like from a winning standpoint.
Right. And, with something we say over and over again is that Texas is not really a red state. It's a hostage state. And we just need to free the hostages and get them to the polls. Congresswoman Crockett, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts on these important issues. Y'all, I know that we did not get to everyone's question, but I thank everybody for submitting them in the chat. We also have dropped a bunch of resources in the chat as far as voting. Do you want to tell everybody about voting, Adriana?
We're going to follow up with everyone
Yeah.
here with a recording of the call and lots of important stuff about voting and how to become a poll worker at your election site and a VDR so we can get more folks to the poll.
Right.
I am a diehard note taker on pen and paper. And the four things that stood out that I'm in all caps and I circled: expand the electorate,
Yeah.
turn out the base, unity, make bold moves.
I love that.
I love it. Thank you. That is exactly right. But before I go, I don't think enough politicians say thank you to the people. And I just want to say thank you because Indivisible is probably the best display of democracy that I can think of because it's just people that are like, fuck this. And
In a nice way.
And we
And
tried
like,
to clean
you
this
know
up.
what? We gonna
I was worried about dropping an F-bomb.
ourselves. And I love that. Like I love that. Like that is the energy, right? And you are always
Honest
so much
energy.
more influential over other people because when everybody's paid to be in the game, it's kind of like people side eye you. But when you just do it because you literally believe in what it is that you're fighting for, you can be so much more convincing. And so I love that. I just love that y'all have this natural energy and you are about saving, this country and our democracy. And you organize and you even piss off the president here and there as well. So
It's fun.
I
It's a
just wanted
hobby.
to say thank you and keep up the energy. I know that sometimes it's like so dark, and I am always trying to remind people of the vice president's final words as she was giving her concession speech. She said that it is only in darkness that you can see the stars. And I just want each and every one of you to shine so very brightly because we do know that in this dark time, Indivisible has shown up and been the stars of the show, from deciding to put together the No Kings rallies, to deciding to make sure that you are opening additional chapters, to deciding to actually listen and talk to candidates so that your people, all those that are associated with Indivisible, can be informed. Listen, this is y'all's time to shine. Don't let anybody dull your light, is my message to you. We will win this if we stick together and if we fight and we say that the power still belongs to the people, because as of now, we are still a democracy. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really love you guys. Again, had a great time in Corpus as
Thank
well.
you, Congresswoman.
Chapter is coming up next.
We're so grateful. We're so grateful for you.
Thank you. And to everyone that joined us tonight, we'll see you.
We'll see you later. Thanks.